Great to see you here again. My name is Luc de Ceuster, founder of the Ceuster Academy, and in this video I will talk about the principles of leveling, which will help us to find the planned start and finish of activities once we resolved issues related to resources. When resources are overutilized, we have to find a solution and we have to use different methods to avoid overutilization of resources. But before we continue, don't forget to click on the subscribe button, click on the bell button, and every time we have a new video, YouTube will inform you about it. So let's have a look. What is resources leveling? What are we going to do? Well, resources leveling is a method to resolve resource conflicts using the available flexibility in the first place, but it's not sufficient to resolve the entire problem. We cannot resolve all the overutilization by just using the slack or the float of the activities. When we considered smoothing, we didn't change the duration of the project. Now, what we could have is that we would have the original critical path and additional critical paths. But in leveling, you can have multiple critical paths, and we can also have a change of critical path because now we are going to extend the duration of the project. Now, when we look at the activities, in smoothing, we didn't change the duration of the critical path activities. Now, what we will have in leveling, or can have, is that we're also going to change the duration of the critical path activities or changes in the duration of the non-critical path activities. And some of those non-critical path activities can become critical. That means that their slack will be equal to 0. Now, when we have the leveling to resolve resources issue, is that the things can change in a more complete way than with smoothing. The original critical path can become non-critical, we can have different critical paths, and we can have multiple critical paths. But let's look at an exercise, how I can demonstrate what leveling is about. We have the exercise. This is the same exercise that we had before. The only difference is that now I also added activity E to the work schedule of Harry Potter. Basically, when we look at the precedence diagramming method or the precedence diagram, we see that we have the different activities and we have exactly the same schedule that we had before. So basically, once you did this or you drew this schedule in the previous video, you can use the same schedule. We have the same elements here and we have the same critical path, B, E, G, H. Now we are going to put that critical path on the original Gantt chart where the resources have been allocated. We do the same thing. Our program adds those resources automatically. We see the slack, we see the actual durations, and we see that in the period, on the periods 1 up to 8, we have clearly an overutilization of Harry Potter. Certainly in period 3 and 4 and 7, we have a very high overutilization. So we have to look at some possibilities. Now, we see that A has a total of 6 periods of slack, and we can apply different solutions and combinations. We can move A, we can extend A, and so on. Now, be aware when we do something with A, the successor activities also will be having some changes. Their start and finish times will change. That's the same with all the activities that have a predecessor. Now, when we look at activity E is on the critical path, and when we would extend that activity, and we will see in the example where we're going through the different possibilities, you will see that what happens here is that we have to extend activity E, which will automatically have an effect on the duration of the project. That's why we also put here 3 extra columns, 21, 22, and 23, because the effect of leveling will be that the project duration will increase. Let's have a look at the Excel. We have the original situation here, so we find that the situation is not really good because we have a problem from periods 1 till 8, and we can in fact now start working on the procedure to resolve those issues. A first element I can do, a logical element, is to move activity A into the Slack. So now we start with activity A on period 6. And basically we also see that C and D move, which is logical because they have A as a predecessor. It doesn't help, so let's try to move all the maximum for A. So we expand A to 3 periods. We still see that there is a problem. We see that we can move F to a later period, so that's the first thing that we're going to do. We're looking at F and we are going to move F to period 13. Now we see that we're coming closer here, but these periods here we cannot do anything about it. We could move the periods, the elements here, but then we already see that we're going to change the critical path. It would be a solution. I've chosen for another solution for activity E. I'm going to extend it with 1 period. So now we start from 6 till 13, sorry. We still see that we have 1 here, so the 1 is not really a good solution. It means that basically we have still something left here. It's still red. Excel gives an alert once the value is more than 100%. So the only thing we can do is to extend E with another unit. So now we have 14 where E is ending. We already have a solution up to period 8, but we still have to do something here. I can move C to period 16. I don't change the duration. So basically we're going to the end of the Slack, and I'm going to extend D with 1 period, 13. We still have a problem here. It's already closed because it's a little bit more than 0.4 and 0.6, so it's still a little bit more than 100. So I put it here to 15, so I extend it again, and I see I only have a problem here. This is the only remaining problem, but I also see that basically I extended the project with 3 periods because I extended the activity E. And we also see that we have additional activities which are now in the critical path. Now we move F to 14. So we move F to 14 and we make it end a little bit later on 17. And what do we see? We don't have a problem here anymore. So we still have activity C, which is a small problem here, but we can resolve that quite easily. I decide to move it further because we can go further into the Slack. That's not a problem anymore. And we go to activity to start 18 and 19 now, but we are going to extend it, and we extend to 20. So basically what we see, we have a solution here, and we see also that Harry Potter is rather well allocated. The engagement is approximately 100%, so it's between 70 to 100%. So that's when we have a solution for the leveling. There may be different solutions, you may find different ways, and it's always interesting to see what is happening with the precedence information. We see, for example, G is after D and E, so D and E, this complies, D and E. 15, we starting at 16. We have E after B, so that's not a problem. E is after B. Yes, still here. We have E after B. We didn't change it. F is also after B, but here we certainly don't have a problem because we're far away from B. We are at the end of the slack, and B still ends at period 5. Then G is after D and E. We already confirmed that, so D ends at 13 and E in 15. So G starting in 16, so there is no problem. But we see that this is also the critical path here. And H is after C. H is after C. So C ends at period 20, so that's not a problem also. F ends at period 17, also no problem. And G ends at period 20, so it's just after this. But we also see that in this case, the activities are on the critical path. So we have a new solution here, a solution that we can use, and that's one way to deal with it. So basically, when we finish the Excel, we find this as the possible solution. Now, there are different ways that we can deal with this. We can find different solutions. What we basically did is that we got A to start from period 6 and we extended it with 1 period. So we have, instead of 2 periods, we have 3 periods. So basically, per period, Harry Potter is now allocated 33%. I only have one decimal, otherwise it would be 0.33. But you know, Excel adds up all perfectly. Now we see B, we didn't change. E, we extended with 3 periods, is still starting after B. And we have the same with G and H, but we see that those also were moved with 3 periods. So basically the entire project was extended with 3 periods. We see that C is moved outside of the late start, late finish values that we found before. So we have now C starting from 18 till 20 with about 13% per period. And we have the same for the other activities. Now, when we look at the utilization of Harry Potter on the bottom, we see that that's quite uniform. And it's quite okay, because when we look at the rules for engagement when using different people, different resources, we want them to work like in a constant framework, constant time. We don't like them to work 20%, then 100%, then 10% or not. We like to have an average like this, where we have, in fact, Harry Potter, who is available for us 100%, and we're basically using Harry Potter in a very optimal way. So that's basically what I wanted to show to you about leveling. When we are leveling the project, we're identifying the solutions, but bear in mind that whenever we have to extend the duration of the project, we will be talking about leveling. It's not an ideal solution, and it may create additional problems because our project may be too long and we may have to apply, for example, activity crashing or fast tracking to reduce the duration. Anyway, it's not easy when you have a lot of people working on your project. When you have a lot of activities, it can become very complicated. But I'm sure that the softwares that you can find, like Microsoft Project, have built-in algorithms to optimize this for you. When it's very complicated, you cannot do it by hand anymore. But I wanted to show you the principle, how it is really done. So thank you very much. That's all I wanted to show you. And don't forget it, we're at the end of the video. Don't forget to click on the subscribe button, click on the bell button, and every time we have a new video, YouTube will inform you about it. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.